Hi guys, couple of months ago I had a battery test with the POCO X3, but POCO was at 120 Hz and many of you wrote that this shouldn't be so. It wasn't fair. All other phones were on 60 and only POCO was on 120. Of course I answered and replied to you that those who buy POCO X3 are unlikely to switch to 60 Hz because all the logic of buying this smartphone is lost. But nevertheless, this question is interesting to me and today I decided to check how much 60 Hz will win over 120 in terms of battery. Of course I understand that not all applications work at 120 Hz, but in real use we also constantly mix applications with different frequencies, therefore I think everything will be more or less real here. Unfortunately, I have only one POCO X3, so I have to drain battery of it twice, which makes it difficult for me to record this video because it will take twice as long as it could and I will have to suffer with tests. I will need to do my best and to reproduce them as close as possible. But the fact that I have only one POCO also has its advantages because it is one and the same smartphone with the same applications, backgrounds, is the same battery, well, with the difference in one charge cycle, of course. For me it is about 2 days of recording plus 10 to 15 hours of video editing, but for you it's all the same 10 minutes of video. And to make this video more interesting I decided to add Redmi Note 9 Pro here. I hope you are not against it. Many people said that POCO with 60 Hz will last as long as a Redmi or even more. We'll see. From the left to the right we have a POCO 120 Hz, in the middle Redmi Note 9 Pro and on the right POCO 60 Hz. And logically smartphones with 60 Hz should drain their batteries approximately in the same way, but I do not know really because I'm writing this text when result is not yet known for me. Firstly, I want to say that I have already had quite a lot of videos about these two phones. Videos are useful and people like them. Those of you who have not seen them, I will leave links in description and in the first pinned comment. Okay, Redmi Note 9 Pro 664, 5020 mAh battery, MIUI Global 12.0.2, POCO X3 628 gigs, 5160 mAh battery, MIUI 12.0.7, the latest official firmware at the time of video recording. No SIM cards in both phones. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC are on. Brightness at maximum values in both Redmi and POCO because their maximum values are approximately the same. For the sake of simplicity, I will call POCO phones as POCO 60 and POCO 120 so as not to pronounce the name in full. Well, while I was explaining everything to you here, half an hour had already passed and in this half an hour I was recording a video in 4K on all these devices and the result you see. POCO 120 88, the leader is Redmi with 94% and POCO 60 is 89. Redmi Note 9 Pro did very well. For some reason POCO 120 showed 1% less than POCO 60. Apparently it is a small error because the screen does not use 120 Hz here. In order to make it easier for me to reproduce the test, I will do everything for 1 hour so I can repeat all the tests twice as closely as possible with the minimum error, as you understand. Well, 1 hour passed, 4K recording is behind and I see that result is not the same on all three opponents. Note 9 Pro is leading. It has overtaken POCO 120 by as much as 10%, and all this despite the fact that these smartphones worked at the same frequencies in this test. Next, we are going to start YouTube for 1 hour. Here, 120 Hz also doesn't matter because YouTube is played at 60. Half an hour passed and the POCO 120 is behind the POCO 60 by the same 3%. The difference does not increase. Well, in all respects, it should have been so because YouTube, as I said, is not played on an increased hertz. 2 hours have passed and YouTube is behind and Redmi is the best for now. The difference in percentage is already quite big and it becomes all clear to me who is the boss here. And I start Chrome. I found awesome sites with infinite zoom. Check it out. If anyone is interested, write in the comments, I will give a link. We will zoom in on the endless picture. Here, unlike the previous two tests, 120 Hz are on and let's see what our battery shows. 2.5 hours on the dashboard and even after half an hour I noticed that the gap is increasing. POCO 120 is already 6% behind POCO 60 and after another half an hour gaps in battery performance are increasing even more and Chrome with infinite zoom is behind. Let's launch the Sonic game. Yes, this game runs at 120 Hz, but there are so many ads that it's just very tough to play this game. It's very difficult. For an hour I tried to play it, and don't forget that in reality I had to play it for 2 hours. If only I knew that there would be so many advertisements, I would launch something else. Okay, half an hour passed for you, crawled for me, and POCO 120 already loses 11% to POCO 60, and REDMI has 56%. What I noticed, POCO X3 started to slow down, especially in the menu. That is, playing Sonic on POCO does not matter 120 Hz or 60, it starts to slow down. It works much better on REDMI. I thought that this moment is important to mention. 4 hours have passed. Well, what I see, POCO is far behind Redmi Note 9 Pro. It doesn't matter how many hertz, 60 or 120, it is still behind. Apparently the optimization on it suffers. I want to remind you that the firmware is latest on POCO, 12.0.7 at the time of video recording, and I think that Xiaomi had enough time to optimize the software of the smartphone since the launch of POCO X3. Guys, if you like my tests, my videos, then subscribe to the channel, but do it with a notification bell. Cause without a bell in YouTube reality, subscription worth nothing. Please subscribe with a bell. Now let's start Antutu for a whole hour, and then I already think that POCO 120 will already be killed by this test, although Antutu works at 60 Hz. After the first run, the result is very similar on all three phones, but POCO 120 is slightly ahead. It has 275,000 points. After the second run, they showed results even better than before. And now POCO 60 is ahead. Well, and after the third run, POCO 120 switched to safe mode and showed 172,000 points because it already had less than 10%. But to my surprise, after the fourth run of Antutu, POCO 120 again showed 238,000 points. Why the hell did it come to life again? Well, after the fifth run, POCO 120 generally began to show a slideshow and it already had 1%. Then exhaled the result of 150,000 and died when the stopwatch showed 456. And it is the result of 120 Hz. The opponents had even more than 30 and 10%. 5 hours passed, we have already got rid of POCO 120 Hz, and now let's launch another Alto's adventure game. I deliberately found a game with support of 120 Hz, but as we can see, this was not needed because the POCO 120 did not stay alive to see this game. Let's finish off these phones. And a little more than half an hour later, when the scoreboard showed 533, POCO X3 60 gave up. And before its ending, I noticed that during this game, the Redmi remained cold, while the POCO X3 60 was much warmer, which means that it wasted its energy. And this is already the second game for today where I see that the POCO did worse than Redmi. Apparently, this explains the remainder of 21% at Redmi. Redmi Note 9 Pro, looking really awesome. It is still alive, and even when we have already 6 hours on the stopwatch, still had 15% of charge. I start another test. CPU throttling. Redmi is very steadfast today, looks really nice versus POCO today, and to be honest, I just want to drain his battery and nothing else. And when the stopwatch showed 642, only then Redmi surrendered. Well, 120 Hz POCO lost to POCO 60 by only 37 minutes. This is a very small difference, but Redmi Note 9 Pro bypassed POCO 60 by 1 hour and 9 minutes, and POCO 120 by as much as 1 hour and 46 minutes. This is a huge difference. It turns out that Redmi is optimized much better. What do you think about this, guys? Write about it in the comments. Of course, my test is not real and far from reality, but nevertheless, you saw everything yourself, and it seems to me everything was fair. If you liked my test, be sure to push like button and subscribe to my channel with notification bell. My name is Evgeny. If you didn't know, have a nice day. Всем добра!